What's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy, and today I'm going to be doing a video all about deck building tips for specifically EDH, and I've done a couple of these in the past, so I will definitely link them in the down bar below. This is definitely a part of a series. I really don't know what number I'm on. I feel like we're on part like 4 or something like that. I don't know. I do like a lot of videos and then I do multiple parts of them, so I'm just like, oh, I don't remember that. But anyways, I'm testing, the lighting was actually pretty good in here, so I don't have my normal overhead light. I don't have like fancy lights, but I just have like the lighting from outside, but it seemed to be pretty good. So if the lighting looks a little different in this video, that is why. But yeah, let's just get into, I actually have 6. Normally I do 5, but I like thought of one and I was like, this is a good one. So then I put it on the list. So we have 6 tips for how to be a better deck builder. And the reason that I kind of got inspired to do this video and kind of just do another part of the series is because I was thinking about how, you know, guys, I just built like my Zagana EDH deck and I felt like the deck was like working really well, and then I was like, whoa, I kind of want to do a video like sort of reflecting on like why I feel like the deck is so strong. And I think I definitely followed a lot of these things and I really wanted to pass these tips on for you guys. So the first tip is to have enough ramp spells. Now, I don't really know if I could honestly give you guys like a number, like you should run like X amount, but I think when I say enough, I pretty much mean like not like 3. And there are, if you're playing like a colorless deck or you're playing a deck that doesn't tend to have as many ramp spells, like basically if you're not playing green, you may be like, oh, there's not as many spells. I've done a whole video, multiple videos on colorless mana rocks and mana ramp if you guys want to check those out. And I haven't done one in a while and there's definitely been new stuff that's come out. And I definitely should, because there's definitely some new cards that I totally want to mention in that video, but I would just say, like, having ramp spells truly is the key, one of the keys to having a really good EDH deck. And I feel like some people think, like, you have to spend so much money to make a really good, efficient EDH deck, and honestly, that is just not true. Like, I have my Omnath EDH deck. That deck is, like, I have, like, a lot of foils, but if you, like, discount the foils, that deck is probably, like, $85. Like, you can really build an EDH deck in, like, budget under 100. And I'm definitely sure you could do decks, like, under 50. I just have a lot of foils, and that just always adds to the cost of my decks and a lot of like promos and things like that. So I would just definitely say like having a decent amount of spells, and like I would always kind of like go over, like if you have like too many, you can always like take them out later and it's a pretty easy thing to take out, but ramp is just so important. Mana rocks, mana acceleration. Also, I would have a mix of both. I feel like some people only run mana rocks that stay on the board, and the issue with that is if someone board wipes, like if a lot of them are artifacts, if they board wipe, you're like, well, this sucks, and you don't have anything to really help you. So definitely have those things that you can sack to get a basic land and things like that. So that is my first tip. The second tip is card draw, and this can get really tough. I'm specifically thinking of like white. I feel like white has like a kind of hard time with card draw, and I'm like, that's like really annoying. I feel like it's kind of hard because I'm thinking of like my Avacyn deck, and I feel like there's definitely cards, but there are like, and we'll get into lands in another point, but like there's definitely a lot of things that you can do to have card draw, and the ones especially that you have like the certain amount of creatures, you draw a card for how many creatures you have, you draw X cards, anything of like those, I would really recommend having some card draw spells. A lot of times too, what cards will do is they'll have like something draw a card attached to it. If you're playing a type of like graveyard recursion deck, which a lot of EDH decks do, I feel like it's really beneficial to have like creatures and things like that have that, because they serve you to a dual purpose. They draw you a card, and they also are a creature, and so they stand for an attacker and a blocker, which is really important in EDH. So I would just say definitely, and again, I can't put like a number on it. Like every EDH deck is so different, but like when I say enough, I don't mean like 2. Like I mean like multiple spells that you have that will really help you get there. Like I feel like you can run out of cards and it can be pretty easy, but if you have those ways of like refreshing your hand, and that's one thing I feel too really strongly about, like I love like blue type of decks in EDH, and like not for the obvious counter spells. I mean, yeah, I do run some counter spells, like I'm not like a jerk and I run like 50. Not saying you're a jerk if that came out really wrong. Not like you're a jerk if you play 50 counter spells. It's just not my kind of EDH. Let's say that. That's a nicer way of saying it. Sorry, some people are probably gonna get real salty at that. But I would just say like have multiple. Oh yeah. So with Merfolk, I was like, wow, I'm like drawing so many cards. This is like the best thing ever, and I love it. It's like my favorite thing to do. So the third thing is I mentioned utility lands. So I'm going to list a lot of videos in the down bar below if you want to check out, because a lot of these tips relate to other videos that I filmed. I'll list the colorless mana rocks and mana ramp videos that you guys can check out. I think I've done like 3 or 4 of them. And then I will also list my series. It's called Let's Not Be Basic with Our Lands. And it basically just talks about a ton of utility lands. I'm due for another one because there have been so many that have come out. So I'll put that on my list of things to do. But utility lands are super important. This is another really common misconception. People think that you have to spend a lot of money on your mana base. I'm gonna just be honest. It's really important to have fetch lands, and it's important to have shock lands, and I get that it's not everyone does not have that kind of cash flow, and I totally understand that. But the main thing that I'm really saying with utility lands is if you can't afford those things, if you can, obviously get them. They're really important. And also the shock lands just got reprinted, y'all, so they're like literally $8. It's really not that bad for the shock lands. I would really pick them. I would recommend picking them up now. Also, the new art is fire. So, but I would say like lands, like if you're running like 2, 3, 4, 5 color decks, like you really need lands that can like get you all of your colors. That is just something that is so important. Like, and you may think like, oh, in a 2-color deck it's not as important, but like if you have like especially cards that have like a lot of mana symbols in them, it's really important for you to be able to cast your spells. And of course, there are instances where regardless of how much fixing you have, regardless of how many utility lands you're going to get mana screwed, it happens. It's just part of the game, but anything that you could do to prevent that as much as you possibly can. And I also feel like, too, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, like, one thing that I feel like, too, a lot about my EDH decks is I've been in instances where a lot of these things, I feel like since I have these things, my deck just runs so much smoother. Like, my decks are more consistent, which I feel like sounds a little weird to say, like, an EDH deck is consistent in the way that when you think of, like, a competitive deck, you think, oh, it's consistent in that I'm consistently drawing this card that I need or something like that. But like what I mean by consistent is that you have access to your mana, you're casting efficient spells, you're, casting spells probably like every turn, you're doing those types of things, you'll be able to stop your opponent from doing things, progress your board kind of thing. And I feel like I was totally making a connection to the point that I was saying, but yeah, just how like I feel like I've been following these things and my decks have just been running so much smoother. So yeah, okay, the 4th thing is running kill spells and board wipes. This is a really common misconception that I see with people, is that they don't run board wipes and they don't run kill spells in their deck. And again, I'm not going to say a number, I'm just going to say enough, and you can determine that as you will. But honestly, it's really important to have a mix of both. It's really, really important, too, that I want to throw this out there. It's really important to have, like, exile spells, too. I feel like I see this a lot. I see a lot of people run destroy things. Those are important too. I'm not saying that they're not good, but it's really important to also have things that exile the board, because there's going to be a lot of things that people have graveyard recursion, even if it's just a little bit. And if you can exile their things, it's so much better than destroying their stuff. So I would definitely really focus on having enough kill spells, having a mix of individual kill spells, making sure you're also hitting creatures, artifacts, lands, like you have a variety of things, which is really important. And board wipes too, super, super important. A lot of people, and I feel like I tend to see this in like a newer player mentality. They're like, well, I don't want to blow up the board. I don't want to blow up my stuff. And I'm like, okay, 2 things. First off, you can definitely get board wipes that don't target your stuff. And the second thing is, a lot of times if you're blowing up the board, your board may be good, but your opponent's board is better, and you need a way to deal with that efficiently. Also, board wipes, they're pretty cheap for the most part. I can think of like a couple that are expensive, but a lot of, if you're playing white too, those board wipes are like $1. They're like really inexpensive, so I would totally recommend getting a balance of individual kill spells and board wipes as well. The 5th thing is your commander should be there to make your deck better. Your commander should not be a be-all, end-all. If you play your commander and someone kills it, everything sucks and you can't win. To me, that's a sign of really bad deck building. If everything revolves around your commander should just be like a cog in the machine. Like, it should just be there to just really a really good cog in the machine. Like, it should be really there to like boost your board presence. It should be there to make everything better. But if you don't have your commander and you're like, well, my deck can't run, you're not really playing a great EDH deck. So I would really think about trying to build decks more efficiently where they don't rely on the commander as heavily. This is a really common misconception, and I think when I got into EDH, I did this a lot, and I realized that it just doesn't work. It doesn't, because someone's going to be running a kill spell, everyone's going to be running those, and It's really important. And it's also really important too if you have a commander with a really high CMC, because then you're having to like try to recast your commander if it's really expensive, and then you like slow down a turn because you spend all your mana casting your commander. It's just kind of like a hot mess. I think cheaper commanders can get away with this a little bit more, but even so, I would just be really very wary of like making sure you're building your decks efficiently where your commander just helps. It's a support card. And it sounds, a lot of people I feel like think like, oh, the commander's like the best card in the deck, and it's like, I mean, kinda, like, it should be there and it should be a good card, but it shouldn't be the be-all end-all. And the last thing that I threw in here, and I feel like you could interpret this in multiple ways, and I think that's fine, but I said, like, know your play group. And I guess what I mean by this is, if you're building a deck that is super budget and your play group is really into the very, very high expensive decks, and everything that they do, they're just going to blow you out, and they run infinite combos and whatever, maybe that deck isn't good for that play group. And I have a lot of comments about this particular thing because I don't know how much you can have, like, how much you have a say in your play group. I mean, I guess you definitely do, but I feel like I've definitely gotten comments from people who are, like, really bummed that they don't have a good play group and they feel like they don't have strong connections to the people that they play EDH with, and that really bums me out because I have, like, an awesome play group, and I feel like we're all on very similar power levels. Like, don't get me wrong, I can do really powerful things, and, like, other people can do really powerful things, and, like, there's definitely been some busted, broken stuff that I've seen, but then I'm also, like, I've done I mean, I don't know, I think that, I feel like the EDH terms are so, like, relative that really they're very subjective. Like, my definition of what I think something is dumb is different from your definition, and I feel like knowing you and your play style and knowing what cards you have and what cards you can afford. But again, I kind of want to go back to the point, like, just because everyone else in the group has really expensive decks, you can have a budget deck. Like, I keep referring back to Omnath, but the reason I say that is because you can build that deck really cheap, and you can just do really insane things with that deck. So it's like, there's definitely budget things that you can do, and they can still be competitive. Like, I've played that deck against people who were not necessarily in my play group and stuff, but I think it's really important to know the people that you're playing with, and I think having an EDH group is a really important thing. Like, I feel like, too, if you all have a variety of decks, like, it doesn't get boring. I think that's something that people can kind of maybe misunderstand, but I think I'm going to leave that point off for now. I think I want to do a separate video because I actually have a story that I want to share, and it's going to be a real talk, and I'll probably film that, you know, in the next couple weeks. But yeah, guys, that is it. Those were a couple more tips to build better decks. A lot of these I feel like are pretty basic or pretty standard, but they're simple. They're pretty quick fixes for a lot of them, and I feel like this was just something that I wanted to throw together and film for this week because I feel like it's always really beneficial to, like, refresher, like, because you can have moments where you've been playing a deck for a while and you're like, why is my deck not working? And I'm kind of at that stage right now with one of my decks, and it's ladies, and I'm a little frustrated and I don't really know what to do, so I think I'm gonna, like, keep these things in my head and kind of rework the deck a little bit. Maybe it was just like I tend to have, if I have, like, a bad game, I tend to be like, oh my god, the deck needs reworking. I'm, like, super dramatic like that. So yeah, but that is it for this video, and I'd love to read your comments in the down bar below, and I will see you guys in my next